My world fell apart when I saw who was sitting next to my son in that car and overheard their conversation about me. My name is Evelyn. I'm 62 years old, and I never imagined I would discover the cruel, heartless plan my own family had made. It started that afternoon when I decided to surprise Jason, my only son. I had made his favorite dessert and wanted to take it to his office to cheer him up. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw his silver sedan parked in a corner spot. A mischievous idea made me smile like a little girl. I would hide in the back seat and jump out to surprise him when he returned. I slipped quietly into the car, which was unlocked, and crouched behind the front seats. My heart beat fast with excitement, thinking about his face when he saw the chocolate cake he had loved since he was a boy. I waited, holding my breath, listening to every sound in the parking lot. After a few minutes that felt like forever, I heard footsteps. The car doors opened. Jason got into the driver's seat, and another person sat in the passenger seat. It was a woman. At first, I thought she might be a coworker until I heard her voice and knew it was Rachel, his wife. My first feeling was softness. How nice they were leaving work together. But my smile went away as they began to talk. The first words from Rachel were like knives to my heart. "Are you absolutely sure no one will suspect anything when it happens?" she asked in a cold voice I had never heard. "Rachel, we've talked about this 1,000 times. The plan is perfect. Mom will have a very natural, very believable accident. No one will question it when a woman her age slips on the stairs in her old house," Jason said in a tone that chilled me. The air left my lungs. I could not be hearing what I thought I was hearing. My son, the boy I raised alone after his father died when he was 8, was planning to kill me. And after the funeral, when everything calms down, we can sell that old house and move into the neighborhood we've always wanted. With the $200,000 the property is worth, plus the savings she has, we can live like we've always dreamed, Rachel said with a strange excitement. My mind went numb. That house she called old was the place where I had given everything to give Jason the best life I could. Every room had memories of nights I stayed up when he was sick, of birthday dinners with little money but much love, of afternoons helping with homework at the kitchen table. "Alan and Patty are on board, right?" Jason asked. Hearing those names broke my heart more. Alan was my older brother, and Patty, his wife, were part of this terrible plan. "Of course they are. Your uncle is desperate for money since he lost his job, and Patty keeps saying your mother has always been stingy with them. She says it's time the family gets what they deserve," Rachel said with contempt. Stingy. That word echoed in my head like a painful sound. I had worked cleaning houses since I was 18 to support my son. I had sold my wedding jewelry to pay for his college. I never bought myself a new dress so he could have what he needed. "The life insurance will help too. That's another $100,000 we'll get without problems," Jason added. In that moment, I knew there was nothing left of the sweet boy I had raised. My tears fell quietly as I stayed crouched, praying they would not find me. My body shook, not only with fear but with a sadness so deep I felt like I would break in two. The conversation went on for several more minutes, listing every detail of my planned death. They had thought of everything. The exact moment, how to make it look like an accident, even how to act at the funeral to seem heartbroken. When they finally got out of the car and walked away as if nothing had happened, I waited 10 more minutes before I dared to move. I climbed out of that car a completely different woman. The loving, trusting mother died in that back seat. I walked to my old car on trembling legs, knowing I had to make a decision that would change everything. I drove home in a state of shock, with tears blurring my eyes and my heart broken into pieces. I could not believe what I had heard. My own son, the reason for my life, wanted to kill me for money. To explain this betrayal, I need to tell you how we reached this point. My story with Jason began 35 years ago when he was born into poverty. His father, Robert, died in a construction accident when Jason was 8. He left us with no insurance, no savings, only a small, very old house we had bought by sacrifice. Overnight, I became a single mother with a child to feed and no schooling beyond high school. I started cleaning houses at 20. I woke at 5 every morning, made breakfast for Jason, took him to school, and then drove all over the city cleaning offices, homes, apartments, whatever I could to bring money home. My hands grew rough from the cleaning chemicals. My back bent from carrying heavy buckets, but I never complained. Jason was a bright child, always the best in his class. His teachers told me he had a bright future, that I had to make sure he went to college. Those words became my mission. Every dollar I earned, I saved for his schooling. When he turned 15, he needed a computer for his projects. Other mothers could buy them easily, but for me it cost 3 months of work. I sold my wedding ring, the only precious thing I had from Robert, to buy him that computer. Jason never knew the sacrifice, and I never told him because I did not want him to feel guilty. During his senior year, private universities sent information about their law programs. Jason wanted to be a lawyer, and I would do anything to help that dream. The tuition was $20,000 a year, a fortune for a woman like me. I asked my brother Alan for help. He had a good job at an insurance company and lived comfortably with Patty. I begged him to lend even part of the money, promising to pay it back with interest. His answer was cruel and clear. "Evelyn, I can't risk my savings on your son's impossible dreams. He should get a job and forget those fantasies of becoming a professional." Those words hurt, but they did not stop me. I got a second job cleaning a veterinary clinic at night. I worked from 5 in the morning until 11 here at night, 7 days a week. My body was tired, but my will was strong. I also started selling homemade food on weekends. Tamales, empanadas, cakes, anything to make extra cash. Jason helped sometimes, but I wanted him to focus on studies. "Your job is to study, son. Leave the rest to me," I always told him. I finally saved the money for his first year of college. The day I took him to enroll, I cried with happiness seeing his name on the papers. My son was going to be a lawyer. All my sacrifice had been worth it. College years were the hardest of my life. I worked up to 14 hours a day to keep payments up. There were months with barely enough to eat, but I always made sure Jason had books, supplies, and money for social events. I did not want him to feel different from classmates from rich families. In his junior year, Jason started dating Rachel, a classmate from a wealthy family. Her father owned many businesses, and she was used to a fancy life I could not imagine. At first, I worried Jason might feel less, but he seemed in love and happy. Rachel was polite with me, but I felt a coldness in her when she visited. She looked around with a critical eye, the old furniture, the walls that needed paint, the small kitchen where I made simple meals. She never said it, but her look said enough. After he graduated, Jason got a job at a top law firm. His first paycheck was more than I made in 3 months. I felt proud and a bit relieved, thinking I could rest after so many years of hard work. He married Rachel in an elegant ceremony that cost my last savings. She wanted a wedding fit for her social circle, and though the cost left me with nothing, I wanted my son to be happy. At the reception, some guests made comments about the groom's humble mother with a tone of disdain, but I tried to ignore it. After the wedding, Jason came by less often. Rachel had excuses, social events, work trips, family visits with her parents. When they did come, they talked about their new life, the fancy apartment, the expensive restaurants, plans to move to a bigger house. I kept working, but only part-time. At 60, my body could not do the long hours anymore. I had managed to save about $50,000 over the years, money I kept for emergencies or to help Jason if needed. My relationship with Alan also got worse. After Jason graduated and got a job, Alan started making sarcastic jokes about being lucky with successful children. Patty was worse, always hinting I had been selfish for putting so much into Jason's schooling instead of helping the larger family. What hurt most was how Jason began to change. His values, his way of speaking, even how he dressed became different. Sometimes he spoke to me in a way that felt like he looked down on me. It was as if he was ashamed of his humble past. 6 months ago, Jason and Rachel began talking about buying a house in an exclusive part of the city. Houses there cost over $500,000, a number I could not understand. When I asked how they would pay, he answered vaguely about investments and business plans. I also noticed their visits included more talk about money, small questions about the value of my house, about my savings, about life insurance. At the time, I thought he was being caring and wanted to make sure I was okay. Now, sitting in my kitchen after hearing that terrible talk in the car, all the puzzle pieces fit together. The change in him, the questions about money, Rachel's influence, Alan and Patty's support. It had all been part of a dark plan that had been growing for months. My son, for whom I had given my whole life, wanted to kill me to get my money and the life insurance. The irony was cruel. The money they wanted to murder me for had been earned only to give him the best life. I could not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to hold on to my thoughts. My mind kept replaying every word of that wicked conversation. Over and over I heard Rachel's cold voice talking about my death like a business deal, and my son's voice agreeing to the details of my murder. At dawn, I woke with a determination I didn't know I had. If they wanted to play dirty, I could too. But first I had to truly understand what I had become to them. I decided to do something I had never done before: spy on my own family. Over the next few days, I watched Jason and Rachel's routines. I parked quietly near their apartment in the mornings, followed them from a distance when they went out, and paid close attention to their words when they visited me. What I learned horrified me even more. Their lifestyle was far beyond their income. Jason earned a good salary as a lawyer, about $6,000 a month, but Rachel had stopped working after the wedding, and their spending was out of control. They ate at restaurants where dinner cost more than $200. Rachel bought designer handbags worth thousands, and they rented an apartment with a $3,000 monthly rent. I also discovered they were drowning in debt. I once overheard a call where Jason argued with someone from the bank about late credit card payments. They owed more than $50,000 in loans and cards, with interest piling up quickly. The pressure had pushed them to desperation, and I was their only escape. My house, which they valued at $200,000, my life insurance worth $100,000, and my $50,000 savings added up to exactly what they needed to clear their debts and buy their dream home. But the worst discovery was that my brother Alan had been the one to suggest the plan in the first place. One afternoon, while cleaning the office where Patty worked, I overheard a phone call that froze my blood. "Evelyn has always been selfish with her money," Patty said. "Alan is right. It's time the family gets what they deserve. That stingy old woman will die sooner or later. Why wait? We need that money too. Alan lost his job 3 months ago, and we can't pay the mortgage." I stood frozen behind the door. My brother had lost his job and never told me. Instead of asking for help, he decided it was better to kill me for money. That night, I went to Alan's house without warning and knocked with my heart racing. When he opened the door, his face showed surprise and guilt. "Evelyn, what are you doing here so late?" he asked, not inviting me in. "Alan, I need to talk to you. May I come in?" I said, keeping my voice steady. We went into the living room where Patty sat watching television. She greeted me coldly, as always. I sat on the sofa and went straight to the point. "Alan, is it true you lost your job?" I asked. His face turned red, and Patty quickly turned off the TV. "How did you find out?" he asked, defensive. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're my brother and you didn't tell me. Why didn't you ask me for help?" Alan and Patty exchanged glances that confirmed everything. "Evelyn, you've always had your own problems. We didn't want to bother you," Patty said with a fake smile. "Patty, I'm his sister. If Alan needed help, I would have given it. I have some savings." At that moment, I saw something terrible in my brother's eyes. Not relief, but resentment. "Some savings?" he asked sharply. "Evelyn, we all know you have more than that. You've been hoarding money for years while the rest of us struggled." His words cut deep. "Alan, I earned that money by working 14-hour days to give my son an education. I didn't hoard it. I sacrificed everything for him." "Exactly," Patty interrupted, her voice bitter. "Everything for Jason. You never cared about helping your own brother. When he needed college money, you said no. But for your little Prince Jason, you always found money." The air turned heavy with years of anger. "You don't understand," I said. "I wanted Jason to have chances we never had. I wanted to break the cycle of poverty." "And what about breaking the cycle of favoritism?" Alan shouted, standing up. "What about thinking of your brother who also needed help? It's always been the same, Evelyn. Since we were kids, you were Mom and Dad's favorite. And now you act like you're better than us. Their words were false, but I could see they had built this story in their minds. In their version, I was the selfish sister and they were the victims. If you needed money so badly, why didn't you just ask me? I pressed, though I already knew the truth. Patty laughed harshly. So you could throw scraps at us? So you could make us feel like beggars? I've never tried to make you feel less. Oh no? Alan yelled. And what about when you bought a house while we rented? When Jason graduated from college while our kids barely finished high school? When you bragged about your savings while we struggled to survive? Every word was unfair. I had worked endlessly for everything I had. Nothing was handed to me, but to them, my hard work was an insult. Alan, if you need money, I can lend you $10,000 right now, I offered, desperate for peace. $10,000? Patty scoffed. Evelyn, we know exactly how much you have. The house is worth $200,000. You have $50,000 in savings, and your life insurance is $100,000. And you offer us $10,000 like we're beggars? My blood ran cold. They knew the exact figures. Someone had checked my finances closely. How do you know so much about my money? I asked, my voice trembling. Alan and Patty stayed silent, but their faces told the truth. I stood up on shaky legs. I think I have my answer, I said, heading to the door. Evelyn, wait! Alan shouted, but I was already leaving. That night I confirmed what I already knew. My family saw me as nothing more than an obstacle standing between them and money. It wasn't just Jason and Rachel. It was a family conspiracy that had been growing for months. The following days were the darkest of my life. I was trapped in a nightmare, knowing my family planned to kill me, but unable to tell anyone. Who would believe me if I said my son wanted me dead? And I had no real proof, just an overheard conversation. I knew I needed evidence before taking action. If I wanted to fight them, I had to be ready. I began to record everything, their habits, their words, their visits, anything that could be used later. I also made a choice that terrified me but was necessary. I would let them believe their plan was working. If I acted suspicious or confronted Jason, they could change their plan and become even more dangerous. Instead, I stayed in the role of the trusting mother. 3 days after my visit to Alan, Jason called to invite me to dinner. His voice sounded unusually sweet, which chilled me. Mom, Rachel and I want to take you to that Italian restaurant you love, he said. We haven't spent time together in a while. The restaurant he mentioned was one we had only visited once, more than a year ago, and I hadn't even liked it. But I pretended to be excited. How thoughtful, son. I'd love that. Perfect. We'll pick you up Friday at 7. And Mom, wear your favorite green dress. We want you to look nice. That detail about my clothing struck me as strange, but I didn't ask. After I hung up, I wondered why he mentioned that dress in particular. It was one of the only expensive dresses I had ever bought 2 years ago. Friday evening, I carefully got ready. I put on the green dress as he asked, styled my hair, and added a little makeup. As I looked in the mirror, I tried to quiet the voice in my head telling me this could be my last dinner. Jason and Rachel arrived at 7 sharp. Jason looked nervous, though he covered it with forced smiles and small talk about the weather. Rachel, however, was calm, even cheerful, which felt more frightening. On the way to the restaurant, the talk was oddly formal. About his job, about vacation plans, about anything except us as a family. I responded automatically, but my mind focused only on watching their every move. At the restaurant, Rachel insisted I order the most expensive dish on the menu. Evelyn, we're paying for everything tonight. Order whatever you like. Don't worry about the cost, she said with a smile that never touched her eyes. During dinner, they slipped in questions that sounded casual, but were anything but. How have you been feeling lately? Any dizziness? Any trouble with stairs? Did you update your health insurance recently? Jason asked in a tone that seemed full of concern. Mom, we worry about you living alone in that big house, he added. Those stairs are steep. What if you were to fall? Oh, son, don't worry. I've lived there for 30 years. I know every step, I said lightly. though my stomach turned. But Mom, Rachel pressed, accidents don't care how long you've lived somewhere. Maybe you should move to a one-story apartment, something safer for a woman your age. The way she said accident made goosebumps run over my skin. It was like she was testing the word out loud. And Mom, Jason continued, have you thought about making a will? I know it's not easy to talk about, but it's important to have everything in order. There it was. The real reason for this dinner. They wanted to make sure my will was updated before they killed me. Well, I do have a basic will I made a few years ago. I lied a little. Everything goes to you, of course. Jason and Rachel exchanged a quick look of satisfaction. It was barely a second, but it told me everything. That's good, Mom. Still, maybe you should review it with a lawyer. Laws change, and we want to make sure your wishes are followed, Jason said in a professional tone. In fact, Rachel added, Jason could help you with that. Since he's a lawyer, he can make sure it's all perfect. The irony was unbearable. My son, who planned to kill me, wanted to be the one to write the will that would give him everything. After dinner, they insisted on driving me home. On the way, the talk turned even darker. Mom, if something happened to you, Jason said softly, is there anything special you'd want us to do with your personal things? Why are you talking about such sad things? I asked, pretending to be annoyed. I plan to live many more years. Of course, Mom, Rachel said quickly. We just want to be ready, just in case. It's the responsible thing to do. When we got to my house, something odd happened. Instead of saying goodbye at the door, they insisted on walking me inside. Let us help you with the stairs. Mom, it's dark and you could trip, Jason said, taking my arm. As we went up the stairs, I felt their eyes studying every step, every railing, every place an accident could happen. It was as if they were mapping out the crime scene. Inside, Rachel wandered around like she was inspecting it. Evelyn, you really should get better lighting on these stairs. They're so dangerous in the dark. And Mom, Jason added, this rug at the top is a little loose. You could easily trip. Each comment cut deeper. Not only were they planning to kill me, but they were here in my home, plotting how. After they left, I stayed awake the whole night, shaking. Not only with fear, but with a sadness so deep it hurt in my chest. My son had sat in my home, eaten dinner with me, pretended to care about me, all while planning my death. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I couldn't just wait for their plan to unfold. I couldn't live every day wondering if it would be my last. I had to act, just not in the way they expected. If they wanted me to have an accident, then that's what they would get. But it would be an accident I controlled. I would plan my own fake death. Planning my death was the most unreal, terrifying thing I had ever done. For days, I lay awake thinking about every detail, every possible mistake, every way it could fail. But it was my only way to expose them and save myself. I needed help. And there was only one person in the world I trusted completely, my neighbor Beatrice. She was 70, had been a nurse all her life, and had been my close friend for more than 20 years. If anyone could help, it was her. One morning, after making sure no one was watching, I went to her house with my heart racing. She opened the door and gasped at the sight of me. Evelyn, what's wrong? You look awful, she said, pulling me inside. We sat in her kitchen where we'd shared coffee hundreds of times. But this talk was unlike any other. Beatrice, what I'm about to tell you sounds insane, but please listen, I began, my voice shaking. I told her everything, from the car conversation to the sinister dinner, from my brother's betrayal to the strange inspection of my home. She listened in silence, her face shifting from shock to horror to fury. My God, Evelyn, this is monstrous, she said, grabbing my hands. Beatrice, I need your help. I have a plan, but I can't do it alone. I explained my idea. I would fake my death so convincingly that even the paramedics would believe it. Beatrice, with her medical knowledge, could help me bring my vital signs low enough for them to declare me dead. Evelyn, do you know how risky this is? If something goes wrong, you could really die, she said. They already have everything planned. It's only a matter of time. Beatrice closed her eyes, thinking hard. We'd need specific medicine. We'd have to time it perfectly. Are you sure? Yes, I said firmly. She stared at me for several seconds that felt endless. All right, she said at last. But we'll do it as safely as possible. In the days that followed, Beatrice and I worked on every detail. She used her hospital contacts to get what we needed. She even arranged for a young paramedic named Reuben, fresh out of school, to be on duty, someone inexperienced enough not to catch the trick. A pathologist friend of hers, Dr. Jones, agreed to quietly sign the certificate. The plan was daring but possible. I'd take medicine that would slow my body almost to nothing. Beatrice would find me and call 911. The paramedics would declare me dead, and at the hospital, Dr. Jones would handle the paperwork. Meanwhile, I'd hide in Beatrice's basement, watching everything my family did once they believed I was gone. We decided to fake a heart attack. At my age, it would look natural and not raise questions. 2 weeks later, we were ready. We chose a Sunday afternoon when Jason and Rachel would be at her parents' lunch. That morning, I felt strangely calm. After weeks of terror, I was finally in control. I dressed in my favorite yellow dress, fixed my hair, and put on makeup. If I was going to die, I wanted to look dignified. At 2, Beatrice arrived with her medical bag. Are you sure, Evelyn? She asked one last time. Completely sure. I swallowed the medicine under her careful watch. It tasted bitter, but I forced it down. How long until it works? I asked. 15 to 20 minutes. You'll feel sleepy first, then your breathing and pulse will drop very low. It'll be like a light coma. Minutes crawled by. Beatrice checked my vitals, writing notes. I began to feel like I was floating out of my body. Evelyn, can you hear me? She asked. I wanted to answer, but my mouth wouldn't move. I was trapped in my body, terrified and amazed at the same time. Perfect. Your vitals are where we need them. Now I'll call 911. I heard her voice break into panic as she spoke into the phone. Please hurry. My neighbor's collapsed. She's not breathing. She has no pulse. Hurry! She laid me gently on the living room floor in a natural pose, whispering, Everything will be okay, Evelyn. In a few hours, we'll have what we need. The sirens wailed outside. The paramedics rushed in. From my half-conscious state, I heard their voices. 62-year-old female, unresponsive. No pulse. Respiration almost nothing. How long has she been like this? I just found her minutes ago, Beatrice cried. I came to visit and the door was open. She was on the floor. After minutes of checks, I heard the words I had waited for and feared. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your friend has passed. Most likely a sudden heart attack. At this age, it happens fast. Officially, Evelyn Monroe was dead. The next stage had begun, watching how my family reacted. I woke later in Beatrice's basement, weak and disoriented. My mouth was dry as dust. Beatrice sat beside me, carefully checking my recovery. How do you feel? She asked, helping me sit up. Like I really died, I whispered. It worked. They declared you dead. The certificate's signed. Officially, Evelyn Monroe died yesterday at 3:45 p.m. of a heart attack. The truth hit me like a wall. I no longer legally existed. I was a ghost, free to watch my family without them knowing. Did you call Jason? I asked, though the words hurt to say. Yes, Beatrice nodded. I called him last night. His reaction was disturbing. She handed me her phone, and with trembling hands, I pressed play on the recording. Jason, it's Beatrice. Your mom's neighbor. I have some very sad news. Your mother, she passed away this afternoon. There was silence for several seconds. When Jason finally spoke, his voice didn't sound shocked or broken. It sounded almost relieved. Oh my God, what happened? He asked. It was a heart attack. I found her at home. The paramedic said it was quick, that she didn't suffer. I see. Thank you for calling, Beatrice. Rachel and I will go to the hospital right away to take care of everything. I'm so sorry. Jason, I know how much you loved your mother. Yes, it's a terrible loss. But my mom had been having some health problems lately. I guess it was her time. That lie about my supposed health problems cut through me like a blade. He was already building a story to justify my death before anyone could ask questions. After hearing the recording, I couldn't hold back my tears. The coldness in his tone, the ease with which he accepted the news, the lie about my health. It confirmed everything. They had truly been planning my death. "There's more," Beatrice said softly. "I set up hidden cameras in your house before you died. I wanted to capture their reaction when they came for your things." She opened her laptop, showing me the live feeds. My own living room appeared on the screen, empty and silent. It felt strange seeing my house like that, knowing it was no longer technically mine. "When do you think they'll show up?" I asked. "Probably today. People like them don't wait long when money's involved." She was right. By noon, we heard keys in the lock. Jason, Rachel, Alan, and Patty walked in together like a well-coordinated team. What I saw next ripped my soul apart. There were no tears, no pause, no respect. They immediately began sorting through my belongings as if they were appraisers at an estate sale. "Well, finally," Patty said with relief. "I didn't think this day would ever come." "Patty, please," Jason muttered. But it sounded more like caution than real scolding. "We just lost my mom." "Oh, Jason, don't play sentimental." "We all know this had to happen," Rachel said coldly. "Your mother lived her life. Now we can live ours." Alan was already rifling through kitchen cabinets. "Where do you think she kept the bank papers?" "We need her account information." "Check the desk in her bedroom," Jason answered. "She always kept her papers organized. I watched them scatter like vultures, touching my things, weighing their value, planning who got what." Rachel opened my jewelry box and examined the contents. "This gold chain might fetch something. These earrings are old, but someone might want them." "Sentimental value won't pay the bills," Patty sneered. "Focus on what's worth real money." Jason pulled my documents from the desk drawer, right where I had always kept them. "Here we go. Savings account at Northwood Bank, $3,000. Checking account, $8,000. And here's the life insurance policy." "How much?" Alan asked eagerly. $100,000. "Sole beneficiary, me." "Perfect," Rachel said with satisfaction. "With that, plus the savings, plus the house sale, we'll have enough for the new place and to clear our debts." "And our share?" Patty asked sharply. "Of course," Jason replied quickly. "As we agreed, a quarter for you." Hearing them divide my life while my body was supposedly still in the morgue was more painful than I ever imagined. But worse was still to come. Alan found a family photo on my nightstand, one of the few where we were all together from Christmas 5 years ago. Instead of pausing, he tossed it in the trash. "We don't need sentimental junk," he said with disdain. "Alan's right," Rachel agreed. "We need to be practical. The house has to sell fast. No clutter." Then Patty said the words that tore me apart. "Honestly, I'm surprised she didn't die sooner with how stubborn she was. I thought she'd live to 90 just to spite us." They all laughed. They laughed at my death, at my so-called stubbornness, at the life I had fought to survive. At that moment, any doubt about my plan vanished. Jason pulled out his phone. "Morrison Real Estate? This is Jason Ruiz. I need an urgent appraisal. The owner passed yesterday. We want it listed this week. They hadn't even discussed a real funeral." When Rachel asked about arrangements, Jason replied, "Simple cremation, no wake, no ceremony. Cheaper and faster." "And if people ask?" Alan pressed. "We'll say it was her last wish, something simple and private," Jason answered smoothly. "They were robbing me of my dignity in death. No chance for friends to say goodbye. No honor for a lifetime of sacrifice. Nothing but an empty, rushed cremation. For 3 hours, they cataloged everything, planned sales, divided spoils. When they left, my home felt stripped bare. That night, as I replayed the recordings, my decision hardened. Exposing their plan wasn't enough. I would make them pay for every cruel word, every greedy move, every piece of my life they had shredded. "Beatrice," I said firmly, "I need your help with the second part of the plan." Her eyes widened. "What are you thinking?" "I'm going to rise from the dead at the most humiliating moment possible. And when I do, The whole world will know what kind of people they are. My family thought they had won the jackpot with my death. They had no idea the real gamble was just beginning, and they had bet on the wrong number. The next few days were a storm of anger and determination. From Beatrice's basement, I watched every move through the hidden cameras. She had even placed more devices in Jason's office, Alan's house, and Rachel's car. Her nurse's training had made her careful, and now that skill served our secret mission. Evelyn, you need to see this, Beatrice told me one morning, pointing to her laptop. On screen, Jason sat in his office, smiling while on the phone. Yes, Mr. Davis. I understand the payout is fast when death is natural. Exactly, a heart attack. No autopsy. The doctor said it was expected for a woman her age under stress. How long for the check? A week? Perfect! His casual, businesslike tone crushed me. There was no grief. No discomfort. He spoke like a man closing a deal. After hanging up, he immediately dialed another number. Rachel, good news. The insurance is coming this week, $100,000 clean. Yes, I already called the real estate people. They'll appraise the house tomorrow. What? No, I don't have time for feelings. We have to be practical. That last phrase shattered me. His mother had died 3 days ago, and he didn't have time for feelings. But what truly prepared me for the final stage of my plan was a conversation we caught that same afternoon between Rachel and Patty at a downtown cafe. You know what the best part of all this is? Rachel said, sipping her latte. That we finally got rid of that burden. Jason always felt guilty for not visiting her more, for not giving her more money. Now he can live without that constant pressure. Oh yes, Patty replied eagerly. And the best part is no one will ever suspect. It was Alan's perfect plan. An old lady in her 60s dying of a heart attack. Who's going to question that? Exactly. And now we all win. You and Jason can buy your dream house. Alan can pay off his debts. And I can finally stop pretending I liked that bitter old woman. Hearing Rachel call me a bitter old woman after I treated her like a daughter was the final straw. Whatever love remained in my heart for them vanished in that instant. Beatrice, I said that night, you have media contacts, don't you? A few, why? Because I want my resurrection to be public? I don't want them to have time to invent excuses or twist the truth. I want the whole world to see exactly who they are. For the first time since this nightmare began, Beatrice smiled. I know a reporter at Channel 7, Maria Elena Vargas. She lives for stories like this. Perfect. When can we meet her? The next night, Maria Elena came to Beatrice's house. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, full of that fierce energy good journalists carry. Mrs. Monroe, she said after hearing everything, this is unbelievable. If you have the evidence you claim, this could be the story of the year. We showed her the recordings we had gathered. I watched as her face shifted from professional caution to genuine outrage. This is monstrous, she muttered, after hearing Patty say they'd been waiting for my death for years. And they're holding a meeting to divide the inheritance? Yes, I confirmed. Jason always said the family would have a formal meeting after someone's death. He claimed it was the civilized thing to do. When do you expect that meeting? She asked. Next Saturday. That's when everyone's free. Maria Elena shut her notebook and looked me in the eye. Mrs. Monroe, once this airs, there's no going back. Your life, and theirs, will change forever. They already changed, I replied without hesitation. The day they decided to kill me. Over the next days, Maria Elena and her team prepared for what they called the most dramatic resurrection in television history. They set up more hidden cameras in my home, coordinated with the police for arrests, and even arranged for a judge to be present. The plan was devastatingly simple. My family would gather in my house for the reading of the will. While they argued about dividing my inheritance, I would walk in, alive, accompanied by cameras, police and proof of their crime. On Friday night, Jason called each family member. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Mom's house. Bring ID. The lawyer will need it for the heirs. The lie about a lawyer made my blood boil. There was no lawyer. It was just a cover to make the meeting seem official. That night, I barely slept. Not from fear, but from anticipation. After days of betrayal and pain, I would finally get justice. And more than justice, I would get truth exposed for all to see. Saturday morning, I dressed carefully. I chose the red dress I had worn to Jason's wedding. I fixed my hair, applied makeup. If I was going to rise from the dead, I wanted to look radiant. "Are you ready for this?" Beatrice asked as she checked the equipment. "I've been ready since the moment I heard my son planning my death," I said, steady and calm. "Today, they'll learn Evelyn Monroe isn't so easy to kill." Maria Elena arrived with her crew at 2 p.m. "They're already at your house," she reported. "Your brother and Patty just walked in. Jason and Rachel are parking now." On the monitors, I watched them enter my home like conquerors, ready to split the spoils. They had no idea their nightmare was minutes away. "Mrs. Monroe," Maria Elena asked, "you're about to confront the people who plotted to kill you. Is there something specific you want to say?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Oh, yes. I have plenty to say." At 3:15, through the hidden cameras, I saw Jason in my favorite chair, the one where I used to read to him as a boy. He held a folder of fake documents, smug. Rachel sat beside him in a new dress that likely cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Alan and Patty sat on the sofa, eyes gleaming, Patty jotting numbers in her notebook. "Well," Jason began in a solemn but false voice, "we're here to discuss the distribution of my mother's assets. She named me sole heir, but as a family we've agreed to share," Rachel added with a thin smile. "Yes, a fair distribution." Maria Elena touched my shoulder. "It's the perfect time." I took a deep breath and walked to the door, flanked by cameras, police, and the reporter. My heart thundered so loudly I thought they might hear it inside. "Are we live?" I asked the cameraman. "Yes, ma'am." "We're live." That gave me the final surge of courage. Thousands were about to witness justice. I slid my key into the lock. The metallic click echoed. Inside, their voices fell silent. "Did you hear that?" Patty asked nervously. "Probably the wind," Alan muttered, though his voice wavered. I opened the door and stepped into my home. The cameras followed, recording every second. When I appeared in the living room doorway, the silence was heavy and absolute. Rachel saw me first. Her face drained of color and she let out a scream that echoed through the whole neighborhood. "Oh my God, it can't be." Jason jumped from the armchair so fast that the folder of papers fell to the floor. His eyes bulged as if they would pop out. "Mom, but you're dead!" Patty burst into hysterical sobs. Not tears of joy, but sheer terror. "It's a ghost." "She's a ghost!" "Evelyn died." "We saw the death certificate." Alan stood frozen, his mouth open but no sound coming out. "Hello, my dear family," I said in the calmest tone I could. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Maria Elena stepped in behind me with her cameras. "Good afternoon. I'm Maria Elena Vargas from Channel 7 News, and we're broadcasting live what may be the most shocking story of the year." "What is this?" Jason shouted, his voice cracking into hysteria. "What's going on?" "My dear son," I said, walking to the center of the room, "is that I have come back from the dead to listen for myself how you plan to split my inheritance. But the hospital, the certificate, you were cremated." Rachel stammered, trembling. "Ah yes, cremation," I said with a cold smile. "How strange you mention that, Rachel, considering you insisted on cremation without a wake because it was cheaper and faster." "Isn't that right?" The cameras caught her horrified expression perfectly. "Mrs. Monroe," Maria Elena said, turning to me, "for our viewers, why did you fake your own death?" "I did it," I said, facing the cameras, "because I discovered my own family planned to murder me for money." "That's a lie," Jason screamed. But his voice sounded desperate, not indignant. "A lie?" I asked. "Do you mean lies like this?" I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Jason and Rachel's voices filled the room, plotting how I would accidentally fall to my death. As the recording played, their faces twisted from shock to terror. Rachel broke into uncontrollable sobs, not of guilt, but of fear. "That recording is fake." Patty screamed. "She's crazy. Someone made it up." "Fake?" I asked, taking out another phone. And what about this one, Patty? The cafe conversation where you called me a bitter old woman and praised Alan's perfect plan? I hit play, and her own voice filled the room. Alan finally found his voice, shaking. Evelyn, this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I laughed bitterly. Was it a misunderstanding when you picked through my belongings like vultures? When Jason called the insurance company to cash in my life policy, Maria Elena stepped closer, pointing her microphone at Jason. Mr. Ruiz, how do you explain your own voice on these recordings, planning your mother's death? Jason's shirt was soaked in sweat. His hands shook. This is a conspiracy. Someone is framing us. A conspiracy? I snapped. Like the one you foremade to kill me? Like the one where you promised Alan and Patty a quarter of my money for their silence? One of the police officers stepped forward. Jason Ruiz, Rachel Ruiz, Alan Monroe, and Patricia Taylor. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. No. Rachel shrieked. This can't be happening. She's dead. We saw her die. You never saw me die, I replied. You saw me act. And I acted far better than you ever pretended to love me. As they were handcuffed, Maria Elena pressed on. Mrs. Monroe, how does it feel to face those who plotted your death? It feels like justice, I said firmly, looking into the camera. For 35 years, I sacrificed everything for my son. I worked until my body broke. I sold my jewelry. I lived without so he could live with. And this is how he repaid me, by plotting my death for money. Jason, cuffed, cried out, Mom, please. I love you. I always loved you. You love me? I asked, voice steady but broken. Do you love someone you plan to kill for $200,000? Do you love someone whose death you celebrate by ordering a cheap cremation? That's not true, he pleaded. Silence. I roared with a strength that surprised even me. I heard it all. You planned my accident. You laughed at my death. Patty said she was surprised it took me so long to die. You divided my money before my body was even cold. Tears ran down my face. But they were not of sadness. They were of freedom. Maria Elena, I said to the reporter, tell the world this. Family isn't just blood. Real family are the people who love you, who care for you, who grieve your loss instead of celebrating your death. The officers marched them out. Jason twisted back toward me, shouting, This isn't over, Mom! We'll fight this in court! No, Jason, I said with quiet finality. This ended the day you decided money mattered more than your mother. The house finally fell silent. Maria Elena faced the camera. This has been one of the most extraordinary stories I have ever covered. A mother who faked her death to expose the family that plotted to kill her. Reporting live, Maria Elena Vargas, Channel 7 News. I sank into my favorite chair, the same one Jason had sat in, planning my inheritance. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Beatrice joined me, her hand warm on mine. How do you feel? She asked. Like I finally woke from the worst nightmare, I whispered. And like the real Evelyn Monroe just came back from the dead. The months that followed felt like a new life. The story went viral within hours, not just locally but nationwide. Media outlets called it the most perfect revenge of modern times. My phone never stopped ringing. Producers wanted documentaries, writers wanted book rights, even Hollywood wanted a movie. But most important of all, my story was finally heard. Social media flooded with support. Thousands of women shared their own stories of sacrifice and betrayal, of children who turned their backs after receiving everything. Without planning it, I became a voice for mothers who had suffered in silence. The legal case moved fast. The recordings Beatrice and I collected were undeniable. Jason, Rachel, Alan, and Patty were charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, insurance fraud, and plotting homicide for profit. In court, their lawyers tried to argue the recordings had been obtained illegally, but the judge ruled that since it was my house and my conversations, there was no violation of privacy. And more than that, the recordings proved they were planning my murder. Protecting my life justified every step I had taken. What broke me most during the trial was hearing Jason on the stand, trying to twist the truth. His lawyer argued that I had been a controlling mother, that I used sacrifice as an emotional weapon to make him feel guilty. "Your Honor," the lawyer said, "my client was trapped by a mother who demanded too much, who never let him live his own life." Those lies pierced me. They painted my unconditional love as poison, my sacrifices as selfish. They tried to turn me into the villain, but when it was my turn, I stood tall. In a steady voice, I told the court how I had sold my wedding ring to buy Jason his first computer, how I had worked 14-hour days to pay for his tuition, how I had given up my own dreams so he could live his. "Your Honor," I said, looking the judge in the eye, "I never used my sacrifices to control my son. I hid them so he wouldn't feel guilty. I only wanted him to be free, to live, to love, to build his own family. I never imagined that freedom would mean planning my death." The most dramatic moment came when the prosecutor played our recordings in full. Cold voices, calmly planning my death. In the courtroom, people wept. When Patty's cruel words played, how she was surprised it took me so long to die, the jury looked shaken. When Rachel called me a burden, even the judge paused, his face dark with disgust. Jason broke down crying, but I couldn't tell if it was remorse or fear. The jury needed only 3 hours. Guilty on all counts, Jason, 20 years. Rachel, 15, Alan, 12. Patty, 10. As the judge read the sentences, none of them looked at me. For the first time, they bowed their heads, crushed by consequences. Before they led Jason away, I walked to him. "My son," I whispered. "A part of me still remembers the sweet boy you once were." Tears filled his eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what I became." "You became someone who valued money more than his mother's life," I said quietly. "But maybe prison will give you time to remember who you once were." Those were our last words. After the trial, I sold the house where they had plotted my death. Too many ghosts lingered there. With the money, I bought a smaller place near Beatrice. And I made a choice that gave my pain meaning. I donated most of my savings to help single mothers pay for their children's education. If money had nearly cost me my life, then I would use that same money to give life to others. With the royalties from my story, I created a scholarship fund in my name. Every year, 5 working mothers get full support for their children's college. That, I decided, would be my real legacy, and something else happened too. From letters, emails, and messages after my story aired, I found a new family. Mothers betrayed by ungrateful children. Seniors abandoned by greedy relatives. People who understood my pain. We became each other's support, each other's family. One woman, Gabrielle, became my closest friend. Betrayed by her daughter and left in a nursing home, she knew my wounds. One day, she said, "Isn't it strange? Our blood families betrayed us for money, but we found truer families in strangers, with love, not greed." She was right. 2 years later, I got a letter from Jason in prison. 4 handwritten pages of apology. He told me of therapy, of nights spent remembering my sacrifices. He said he hated himself for what he had become. "Mom," he wrote, "I know I can't undo what I did. I deserve this, but every day I remember the incredible woman who raised me." I read it many times. In the end, I replied, "Jason, I believe you're sorry. But forgiveness is something you'll have to earn over a lifetime. The boy I raised is buried under the man who tried to kill me. Only you can decide if he's worth finding again." He never wrote back. That was enough. Now, at 65, I am happier than I've been in decades. My house is filled with laughter from my chosen family. My days are busy with work that matters. My nights are quiet and peaceful. People ask if I regret faking my death. My answer is always the same. They betrayed me in the most dramatic way possible. I simply chose to survive with equal drama. The greatest lesson I learned is this: family is not defined by blood. True family is made of love, loyalty, and care. My biological family betrayed me for money, but I found sisters, daughters, even grandchildren in the people who came into my life afterward. It's never too late to start over. At 62, when I thought my life was almost done, I was reborn. I didn't just fake my death. I faked my rebirth. And justice came, not just through prison, but through truth made public. The money they wanted to kill me for became the money they wasted on lawyers who couldn't save them. Tonight, I write these last lines in my new home, looking at a garden I planted myself. Flowers bloom brightly, fed not by bitterness but by hope. My name is Evelyn Monroe. I'm 65 years old, and this is the story of how I died, so I could truly live. If you enjoyed my story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. If you'd like to support me, send a super thanks so I can keep bringing more life stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next story might just be the one you need to hear. With love and respect,